until November 29th, 2025. This is year 4, day 279, since the full-scale invasion began. A warm welcome. I greet you to the Daily Situation Report. You all know it. The light sanctions against Putin's shadow fleet, which are intended to prevent his exports that he uses to shovel money into the war chest. But in addition to the light sanctions, which mainly come from the European Union here, come the tough ones as well. 2 oil tankers from the Russian shadow fleet, namely the Kairos and the Virat, were blown up in the Black Sea near the Bosphorus. Here is the radio message on board the Virat. You heard it, drones, because Ukraine attacked 2 Russian oil tankers in the Black Sea with sea drones. A source in the Ukrainian intelligence service confirmed this. That's what the European Union told the Kyiv Independent. Apparently, the ships are supposed to transport oil from the Russian port of Novorossiysk out into the world, in this case towards Turkey, and they would have had a theoretical capacity for goods worth 70 million United States dollars, but according to the source, they were not loaded at the time of the attack. That means they probably already delivered the oil and were then sunk on their way back or on their way to pick up new oil. The Security Service of Ukraine speaks of a successful joint operation with the Ukrainian Navy and also released videos of the attacks, which we can see here. Financially speaking, the Russians are losing about the same as if one of their oil depots were blown up and burned, but at least only at first, because such attacks would force the Russians to send their remaining ships of the Black Sea Fleet, which they wanted to protect at Novorossiysk, as escorts for the tankers, thus bringing them back within striking distance of Ukrainian forces. Or you just don't do it and possibly lose more ships from the fleet, which the Russians can hardly afford. The town of Rudinsky in the northeast of Pokrovsk now rather resembles a post-apocalyptic world. Destroyed vehicles, collapsed houses, debris, and remnants of the war are scattered all over the streets. You can go ahead and add it to the list of liberated places, even though the town wasn't even captured by the Russians. The Russians arrived a few months ago, captured half the town, but were pushed back by the Ukrainians. They were pushed back about 1 kilometer before the town limits. But that doesn't mean they don't try every day to get back into the town. In the city of Pokrovsk itself, which is a bit further south from here, not much is happening here compared to the last few days. So compared to the last reports, there has been no change at the front here at all. However, fighting remains intense, especially in the town center. Russian units are still trying to capture and dominate the last remaining yellow spots in the northern part of the city. The Ukrainians are mainly trying to counter this with drones and at the same time keep the last road opened here. We already saw here at the Blue Pin recently that many Ukrainian vehicles were destroyed here while trying to enter the city or the pocket. The situation remains difficult and shouldn't be underestimated. However, there were no visible changes at the front. Drone units on both sides often post videos here, editing together compilations of successful drone strikes from the past few days. In a Ukrainian compilation of successful drone strikes near Pokrovsk, which I watched for geolocation purposes, since I'm here, well, part of my work isn't just constantly gathering information and then presenting it to you in a shortened or compressed form, but a big part of it is also something else. And that's also the reason why my research usually takes about 4 hours for each individual report. It's simply because geolocating is also part of it. When I receive a video or someone posts a video and claims that this attack took place at a certain location, I have to check every single video. I have to see if the background in the video looks roughly like the current season. So for an attack where there should apparently be snow on the ground but there isn't any, it's probably not real. That didn't happen on that day. Attacks that don't fit at all, like the attack up here with the destroyed Ukrainian vehicles. I had to check that one too. I basically had to find exactly this intersection here and the parallel railway track that you can also see once in the video. This way, I can confidently state in the situation report that this happened here, since I verify the information Otherwise, I'd fail my quality standards. And very few people do that. Many people just take statements from others one-to-one without checking them themselves and skip the whole process. But that's not why I made this channel. And in such an examination, you also look at attacks on Russian or Ukrainian soldiers. And in one of these compilations, there was this clip where you can once again see a Russian soldier with a crutch at the front. That could be one side now. The Russians are sending wounded soldiers back into battle again. So as a Russian soldier, you now just take precautions. This way, if you're injured, you have something immediately and don't need a makeshift solution. You can likely answer that in the comments. Putin has signed the Russian budget for 2026, which allocates at least $166 billion for the war against Ukraine. A third of all spending and the highest military budget since Soviet times. To fund this, Russia cut social programs, raised taxes, and froze pensions. You have to save somewhere, and it's always easiest to do that at the expense of ordinary people. The Battle of Huljapole continues. Since the last update, Russian forces of the 38th Motorized Rifle Brigade managed to capture the village of Shlenyehai a bit further east here and close the gap in the front. The delaying battle lasted a maximum of 2 days, which gave the Ukrainians more time to move important units into the region. In addition to the 2 territorial defense brigades, another unit that has proven itself very well over the past few months has now joined them. My regular viewers know them as the 225th. Assault Regiment has endured much. In 2023, they remained a battalion of the 127th. Territorial Defense Brigade, a unit highly specialized in defense. And shortly after that, they were separated as an independent battalion. That was also the moment when they shifted more towards offense instead of defense. That was around the time when the Ukrainian summer offensive at Zaporizhia began, and then they were also involved at Kursk. Quite successfully, they were then expanded into a regiment and now consist of 4 separate battalions, which have been stationed there ever since, where things got really dangerous. So it's no coincidence that they now had to enter the combat zone near this city. The only question is whether that will be enough. The Russians still have the 872nd and 305th self-propelled artillery regiments here. They have the artillery brigade as supporting subunits in the field, which are facing the practically non-existent Ukrainian artillery. Based on this situation, I assume that the Russians will try to make up for the shortage of soldiers with glide bombs and artillery. An offensive Ukrainian unit would have the opportunity to break through the rather thinly manned Russian defenses with a counterattack and drive a wedge between the artillery units and the 38th to strike the brigade while the territorial defense forces secure the city. But for that, you simply need manpower and a bit more guts. The refinery near Krasnodar was attacked again. As suspected yesterday, it's now clear that Ukrainians have chosen valuable targets from months of drone attacks, and these are increasingly being hit by repeated strikes. The aim is to damage large and poorly protected refineries more frequently so that they lose capacity and, in the best case, have to halt production. A special thanks, as always, goes to the Algo Crew channel members and also to Lieutenant Colonel Rudinsky. And with that, I thank you for listening. Feel free to subscribe, like, comment, and see you at the next Situation Report subtitling.